You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. Presented by CMH Heli-Skiing and Fat Tire Amber Ale.
Caite Zeliff. Is it Zeliff?
Zeliff.
Zeliff, as in like overzealous?
Yeah, exactly.
About skiing?
That's me.
That's awesome. Welcome to the podcast. I'm glad we could finally have you on the show. I think the first time I reached out to you or was really aware of you last year, I think through like the Corbet stuff, but you were traveling to Europe and you were in like the priority lounge.
Oh,
do you remember that? Do you remember that? And I sent
totally.
I sent you a Facebook message or an Instagram DM. I'm like, hey, I'm flying next week. How'd you get in on that? It's like it was amazing. So I ended up getting into the lounge, and
Isn't it a dream?
It was amazing. You opened up a whole new like realm of possibilities in my life. So I have to thank you for that as well.
You're very welcome.
I had like 3 meals. I had a shower. I had like a little nap. Man, they got the full meal deal in those airport lounges. Like, take advantage.
Totally. It's funny. I feel like anytime I'm in there, I've bummed one of those codes off a friend or a boss or a parent, and then I feel like I don't belong, but I take full advantage myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking about it with my dad, and he's like, "I'll just put $40 in your account. Go and." I was like, "Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it." So I don't like spending money on myself for that kind of stuff if I don't need to. Right? Yeah. It's like, well, what's wrong with that uncomfortable airport chair over there that I can sit in for 3 hours? Right?
Totally. Yeah.
There's not really a need, but I think sometimes you got to treat yourself, right?
I agree, especially on those long travel days.
Right?
Can't have the uncomfortable chairs.
Well, that might not even be a thing anymore. We may never have those long, uncomfortable travel days ever again.
Oh my goodness. I hope that's not true.
I don't think that's true. How is your like outlook on everything changed since the COVID break? Because you, and I'll say this from the point of view of like, you are an up and coming skiing superstar, right? And it's like you've missed out on a lot of things that would have been brand new to you that are probably some of the most exciting, most fun parts about being a pro skier. You kind of missed out on.
Totally. I certainly did. I think it took a big shift in my outlook because, as you can imagine, all that being said, I was lucky enough to get a Warren Miller tour under my belt before COVID hit. So I got one good kind of world premiere travel, feel like a rock star which was awesome. And I loved every second of it. Was definitely looking forward to that this year with TGR. But as we all know, COVID hit pretty hard. And it was actually like a really cool shift that I found where there is a lot of that in being a professional skier. Like maybe it's ego driven or whatever, but you want people to see this thing you work so hard on, being my segment in a TGR film and wanting that applaud. And like, I would be dishonest if I said I didn't love signing like autographs and hanging out and people, I don't know, getting excited about seeing me. I think that's like a very normal thing to get excited about as a human when you find success. But I kind of took a step back and I had my freak out for sure of like,
really? Like a full on freak out?
No, I just was like pity partying for a second and was like, this is my first TGR tour and it would be so sick, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of just like, there's nothing I could do about it. So I put my head down and was able to, instead of going on tour for a month or whatever, I was able to stay in Jackson, train, make money, and focus on the season. So ultimately, I think it was a shift to kind of further the athletic aspects of the ski part of my life right now. And yeah, I love being a rock star just like everybody else, but I've been able to like really focus on getting fit and strong and making plans for this winter. So there's definitely been some silver linings, and I don't know, I think everything happens for a reason. So I'm hoping that this year just will lead to a bunch more of tours in the future that I can parade around feeling like a total rock star in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just answered the question I was going to ask. Like, you missed out on the TGR tour. I didn't realize you were on that Warren Miller tour, which is also pretty fantastic.
That was a blast. Yeah, we got to go, because I'm from the East Coast, I was lucky enough to do some of the West Coast tours and then shot across the country and kind of toured around. Like I got to go to New York City for the first time, which blew my mind.
Didn't you grow up like not far from there?
Yeah, I'm like a Northwoods kid though. I'm from northern New Hampshire, and I don't know, I've never really had any reason to go to New York City, but I loved it. It was super fun. I was totally out of my comfort zone. I went to like a rave in Brooklyn and it was sweet.
How far is New York from where you grew up? Like to drive?
9-ish hours.
Oh,
maybe.
so it's still a good ways.
It's still a truck. Yeah. It's like, I'm like on the Maine border, really far north. So it takes a bit of time to get there.
Okay. Because I know what you mean with the New York thing. Because I was at IF3 about 2 or 3 years ago, and the flights from Vancouver to Montreal were cheaper if I flew back from New York rather than in and out of Montreal. For whatever reason, Canadian Airlines are ridiculously expensive. So I just ended up catching a ride, went down to Burlington, ended up getting a flight from Burlington to New York City, same kind of thing. And I was like, whoa, this place is cool, right?
It's wild. It kind of feels like it doesn't feel real.
No.
It feels like a Disney World, like street. I liked it.
Other than the rave in Brooklyn, was there any quintessential New York thing that you did when you were there?
Yeah, we walked. I was with Jim Ryan, who is another up and comer, and he's from the East Coast, and he's kind of spent some time in New York. So we walked through Times Square and did a couple of the, I don't know, touristy things that were.
Did you get caught by the dancing guys?
No, I wish.
Or any of the the street performers? So the street performer, I got caught in this stupid street performer bullshit.
Oh no!
Where they're like, yeah, you stand here, and then you stand here, and then they make everybody like kind of part of their little dance or whatever, and then they're like, give us money, and you're like, oh, I got had.
Yeah, no, didn't have that experience. I like street performers though; they're pretty cool. I think that that's happened to me in Boston before. It was pretty late. We were at a show in Connecticut. I'd never been to New York City. I kind of was all hyped on going, and I dragged Jim after the show, and we went quite late. So we escaped the street performer lockdown.
Yeah, smart. Very, very smart. So with your whole new life here, it's been like what, a couple of years of your trajectory's been like that, which is pretty exciting. And I can already tell, like, just so the first 5 minutes that you were talking with me, I was like, oh, she's a pro, like already a seasoned pro. Sometimes you talk to people that get it, and some have a little, and by it, I mean like the whole thing. Like, you know how to be not only an athlete, but you know how to talk to interviews and media, and you know how to share yourself. And I can already tell just by the way you're speaking, I'm like, oh, you're going to go places. Cause that's a lot. That's a lot of it too, right? Like there's, in the skiing game, there's a lot of people that I'm sure that you've known that are like some of the best skiers you've ever known, but they don't get any recognition.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a funny game. You have to be a lot of things. Exactly.
You have to be a lot of things. Right. So I see that like whatever the ingredients in your little potion seem to be working out. Have you found, you're welcome.
I'm stoked about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Like, cause I've had a lot of conversations, and some I have to do a lot of work for, and some I just have to go like this.
Just sit back. Let me take care of you.
Yeah. Sit back and carry on. So please carry on.
Oh, wait. No, I need a couple questions.
No, I'm just teasing. But like, have you found that, like, as I said, it was kind of a quick introduction, right? Obviously, for those that don't know you kind of made your mark at the King and Queens of Corbet's by launching in and airing into that, and basically announcing, "Hey, guess what, everybody? I'm here." And then you did it again the next year.
Yeah.
And now you have half a dozen or so sponsors. Are you able to ski and not work now? Are you almost at that level, do you figure?
Yeah, this is the first winter where that's been the case, and it's really, really nice.
Right. So that's like 2-3 years. All of a sudden you went from like just Caite to Caite.
Yeah.
Zeliff. That's, I have to remember Caite over Zeliff about skiing, right?
There it is.
So to make an awkward kind of point a little bit more awkward and long, but have you noticed the transition a bit overwhelming, or is it just something you're like, all right, I can do this, is easy?
I think it comes and goes in waves. When I really wanted this really, really bad, it was a dream of mine since I was a kid. So originally when these things start happening, it's like you're going to celebrate it when Powder calls you and wants to write an article, or you get a bunch of Instagram followers. And I think those things were exciting at first. And then there's been moments of it being a bit daunting. Like I asked Angel, I was hanging out with Angel Collinson in Utah earlier this fall, and I was like, so do you respond to all the DMs you get? Like, is that, and she's like, no, like I could never do that. I'm like, oh, okay. got it. Cause I respond to every single one. And like, I think those are the kind of the growing pains of like just learning how to navigate this world. Like there's so many amazing things that come out of it. There's also, I don't know, a lot of things like we were just talking about that aren't skiing related that are just part of the game. And I think at first I was excited and then I was overwhelmed and was like, how am I going to keep all these balls in the air? And then I kind of have like hit my groove and I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the talking parts or the sharing of the story, the interviews, the stuff that at first I was like, oh, this is so awkward. I don't know.
It's hard to talk about yourself when you're not used to talking about yourself.
Yeah. And like tell the same story sometimes too. I'm like, well, you guys have heard it, but maybe you haven't. And I like the, like kind of the opportunity to share my experience. I feel like skiing has been such a beautiful part of my life and it's cool to like thank all the people that helped me get here. And yeah, it's definitely, I've noticed a huge shift. And I think that one of the funny things is like being known, even if it's just in Jackson, you know, but like I've had to get really good at names or I've tried to get good at names because everyone's like, Kate, how are you? And you can only say like, what up, dude? Or, hey man, or
what's up, fella?
Girl.
Hey,
fella. So like, that's definitely the biggest difference I think is like, I did go from being like just another ski instructor person around Jackson to like, I have my face on a couple of magazines and I don't know. So that's been the biggest difference and just trying to stay true to who I am while navigating this whole world and I don't know, being in front of the camera all the time. I'm just like trying to center in on who I am at the core.
Have you noticed that core has changed at all? Like, have you noticed like changes in yourself? Like, who am I? Obviously you've developed as a person, but have those core values and some of the ways that you have to approach people or see people, has that changed at all?
I feel like there's been some change as of recently, but not so much at the core level. I think everything has been like pretty steady the whole way through. I think I'm realizing as I get a bit older, like what works best for me and what I truly want out of skiing. I think you get to a certain point where my dream was to be in a TGR film. And then that happened. And my world was shook because I was like, whoa, this is what that looks like. And that's not good or bad. But now I was just able to like kind of focus in on the things that are important to me at that core level and remind myself of that. Cause I think I got a little hungry and I I was just blinded by skiing and the dream for a long time. And it's nice to kind of take a breath and like find some balance in other places again and just kind of reevaluate what the goals are moving forward.
So that's exciting to hear because like that's not a common occurrence, right? You have a dream for your life and you, like you said, you've got the blinders on and you've got this focus and then you achieve it relatively young. Like you did it. Like yeah. You did it. You achieved your dream. That's pretty cool.
It is really cool. And I also had the opposite experience when I was quite young. At 17, my dream was to be on the US ski team. I had the opportunity. I went to a tryout camp. I didn't make it. And so I have both sides of that. And I think not making it really fired me up to get to this dream. But I also realized like, it's kind of crazy to achieve your dream in a sense, because then you're like, wait, what's next? And
now what?
It took me like 3 to 6 months, I think, to figure out what's next. And now I'm feeling pretty dialed. And yeah, it's a special thing. And mostly just to be surrounded by my mentors. Like Jackson's such a cool place for that. And just the ski industry being so small, like having Angel Collinson and Michelle Parker's number in my phone is like, that's a cooler thing than most, in my opinion. And being able to call on them has been really amazing as well. Like you get to a certain place where maybe a select few understand where you're at. And it's been nice to kind of have those select few to check in, and they've been like super supportive and they've helped me a lot. So
it's amazing. It's amazing when you reach a certain level or you accomplish something specifically like you have. And these people or these heroes that were the example that you set yourself towards are all of a sudden now available to you. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you didn't even achieve your goal of just being in the movie, but now like you're a part of this community. You know, it's like celebrity culture, right? Like, oh my God, there's Angel Collinson, or like you said, there's Michelle Parker, but now they're in your phone. It's amazing when you reach kind of a level and then now they can say, okay, it's almost like this weird club. You know what I mean?
Oh,
where
yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, she reached level 6. all right,
Right.
open the door and then bring her in. But it's like, because you can relate to them and they can relate to you now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like at the same time, it's been really cool to be stoked on them. Like people say, don't meet your mentors, you know? And I've been really
I've
like,
heard that. I've heard that. But to be honest with you, you'll probably say the same thing in this ski industry. I say meet them.
totally.
I think I've yet to meet somebody in this industry where I've been like, that guy sucks or that girl sucks.
Totally.
Doesn't
Yeah.
happen. It really
No.
doesn't happen. And I think maybe there's a reason for that, is that there's a filter in our community, right? We don't allow that negativity or those people, like, unless you have this crazy ability, people who are shitty don't succeed in this industry because we don't allow it.
Totally. And just mountain people, I feel like as I've lived in Jackson a bit longer and started to appreciate like other mountain sports as well as skiing, it's like very hard to find a shitty person in the mountains. Like maybe there's a couple, but I don't know. It's a very special group of people.
Yeah. It's something about that fresh mountain air. Hey,
Preach.
yeah. So what made you choose Jackson specifically? So, for some of the people that don't know Caite's story, like you said, you kind of grew up trying to be a ski racer.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, why don't we tell a little bit about your story?
Sure.
So here I'm editing myself out already. So for people listening, Caite was released. Caite had an episode for another podcast out today, which you probably all know, and you should probably go listen to it because the more the merrier. And kind of back to what you were saying before, it's like, you know, you kind of have to figure out, oh, do I want to keep telling the same story, and do I want to keep doing this and that? But I've realized that every outlet has a different audience. Some people are going to listen to all of them. Some people are going to be super fans of you, and they're going to like consume everything that they can find. And some are just going to come across you and be like, oh, that's really, really cool. Right. So I say, just do it. The more, the more, the better. So I don't personally know your story that well. I know a little bit from what I've done the research on. Yeah. Tell me that.
Sure. I was born in a little ski town called North Conway, New Hampshire.
How big was the hill?
Tiny. Well, it's called Cranmore Mountain, and it's got 4 or 5 chairlifts. God, I don't even know how tall it is. I should. But it was a neighborhood hill. I lived probably a mile from it. And I actually found ski racing through a school program. So the school that I went to, this was like a very small 10,000 person ski town, lots of ski history. It actually has the first ski school in the US. Hannes Schneider came over from Austria, kind of created this little ski hub in my hometown. It also rests at the base of Mount Washington, which is famous for Tuckerman's Ravine. It's the tallest peak on the East Coast. So just kind of a really ski oriented place. And every Monday at school when you were in first grade, so once you got through kindergarten, everyone in the school went to lunch on Monday, and then from lunch went straight to the hill, which was sweet. Got to rent gear, and mostly just parents were volunteers, and they were the chaperones, and we ripped around the hill, and there was different colors. So you start in green and you move your way up. Purple's the best. And I ended up moving up quite quickly. And I knew that sports were always going to be part of my life. When I was younger, I really enjoyed soccer and all these things. And then I found skiing, and that quickly kind of transitioned into ski racing, where I fell in love with it. I definitely love going fast, and I don't know where that comes from. I just got a snowmobile, and let me tell you what, man.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Throttles are amazing.
We're going to get to that.
Perfect. Yeah, just fell in love with going fast, as well as there's something about, I think it might be my learning style, but being able to lap the course over and over and over again and really hone in and work on technical things. That was right up my alley at that point, and it gave me a lot of direction for whatever reason. Even if I was young, I think I found it in 5th grade. It just was something I was in love with, and it gave me, like, I remember the first race I ever did, I won. And so I also got a lot of applaud for that, and people were like stoked on it. And I think it just built my confidence. Followed ski racing to the FIS and NORAM level, and was lucky enough to get the opportunity to go to a private school, which was pretty sweet for, I grew up with a single mom, and like definitely didn't have the cash to go to a private school. So when I got the opportunity to get financial support to go there, it was a pretty big deal. And that's definitely, it it was just another part of the chapter where I kind of like saw skiing as this opportunity. It was something that was getting me to a place that I would have never been without it. So went to Proctor Academy, which is in Andover, New Hampshire. And that ski hill was tiny. It had a rope tow, and the Super G course was 11 seconds, I think, that we would race.
So to get like a full, so in order to do like a full like course, would you just have to lap it 5 times and then just add all the times together?
We just skied a lot of slalom, is what ended up happening. And so at that point I was skiing really fast and was invited to a national team camp. I was skiing speed really quickly, which is funny because I didn't practice it. But again, I just liked going fast. And so that's kind of, I started getting into downhill and Super G as my disciplines, got called up to try out for the US ski team. And I was kind of a goofball. I am a goofball. And like, I didn't take it as seriously as I think they wanted. And they told me I wasn't mature enough to be on the US ski team. Like I was skiing, it hurt, but I think everything happens really how it's supposed to be. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be here today. And this is a really great place to be. So
are you a believer in fate?
Very much so. Yeah. I think you have to be sometimes in.
Is it like fate or more like The Secret? Are you familiar with The Secret?
Oh yeah.
Right?
My grandmother introduced that to me when I was really young. And I honestly think that's like been such a helpful tool in my toolbox throughout this whole thing, just like law of attraction and thinking about what I want and like making that come to me, obviously with hard work and all the other things. But
do you do like dream vision boards and that sort of thing?
I do a ton of visualization, not a ton of dream boards. I have in the past, but
you know what you want, and you just put it in, you plant the seed, and it's like water.
Totally. And it's hard to like, I feel like sometimes with that stuff, you get to a point you're like, oh, this isn't working. And it's like just keeping that momentum going and like believing in yourself. That's what I've really been working on since COVID and kind of having some space to work on those things. But so yeah, long story longer, basically I didn't make the US ski team. I was crushed, but I wasn't done on that dream. And I went to Stratton Mountain School, which is a ski academy in Vermont, did a postgraduate year there, which basically I was kind of taking to decide if I was going to make the US ski team or not. It was like the last ditch effort. And at that point I was done. I was burnt out. So I decided I wasn't going to keep going for this dream. I was going to go ski at the University of New Hampshire. It was a Division I school. It was affordable. I got, again, some financial support through skiing and academics, which made college an option, which was very exciting. And I went and I was studying business and I was just like, this is crazy. Why am I here? I get really, sometimes if I'm stuck in one place, I get kind of like freaked out.
A little antsy.
Yeah. And so I like the idea of being in this place for 4 years in my home, like in my home state again, like there's something that wasn't quite right. And I skied one carnival and then blew my knee out and I was like fired up. It was the craziest thing. I like blew my knee out. I like knew I blew my knee out and I called my mom and she happened to be kind of close by. She came and she was expecting like full meltdown, Kate. And I look her in the eyes and I was like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think I'm relieved. And she's like, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, however you're taking this is fine. Like, you're not in tears. That's a good thing. And
you had the out that you secretly you were needing deep down.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have, ski racing is all I knew from 5th grade on. It's how it was my identity. It's who I was. It's like in my head, like why I had friends, because I was like fast and on the ski team. And I know none of that's true, but like, it's just your identity. And it's hard to kind of picture a life without it. So like you said, it was kind of like my opportunity to pull the ripcord on that. And I finished my year and kind of talked to my mom about what her thoughts were on me heading out west and going and getting a little bit more of an experimental education. Neither of my parents went to college, so I didn't have the pressures of staying in school. She was fully supportive of my hopes to go out west. And that basically looked like I had no idea. I basically
had you ever been out here before with the whole race thing? Had
with
you made
racing,
trips out?
Yeah, like Colorado mostly Colorado, Utah once or twice. But again, like as a child with a coach and a team and skied the same stuff, you know, it's just such a different experience and doing it for real. So I kind of had my eyes set on either Utah or Jackson. I didn't know Jackson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jeff Ledger at all, Dr. Huck and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did the gigantic front flip off Corbets. His wife went to school, high school in my hometown with my mom. So kind of had like an in to Jackson. She was the manager of this restaurant. She kind of set me up with a busing job because I was 20 and couldn't wait tables. So busing is what I had on the table. And I had a friend from UNH who was from there, and he helped me get housing, moved out with another ski racer buddy. And I took 4 months to just drive across the country, figure myself out. It was actually a really great, like, I don't know, the West is a beautiful place for a young East Coaster. I got to see the Grand Canyon and got to drive Route 1 on the coast of California and did all the things and listen to all the transcendental music and like.
do you find those missions are like soul, like, is it almost like because you just did a trip back east, right? I remember looking at your stories. You did a trip back east and came back, and it looked like the most fun you had was the travel.
Yeah, I love it. My mom always calls it windshield therapy. It's like driving by yourself, and I'm a huge caffeine fan, so I usually like get a bunch of coffee and just like podcasts and music and shut off the radio sometimes and just really get to think. I find kind of like whether it's walking or whatever, like that's the best way for me to think. That's why I like touring.
Are you more comfortable by yourself than you are around other people?
It's a combo. I've realized that I'm more introverted than I ever knew because I'm a very social person. And if
you're an introverted extrovert, right?
Yeah, that's me. Totally.
Same here.
And I didn't realize that really, because I always was like kind of the life of the party and like excited to go out and see everybody. And every time I was around people, I felt that elevated energy. But
it's exhausting, right?
But
then you get back home and then you'd feel kind of empty because you gave all of yourself away and you didn't keep any for yourself. Is that
totally
fair?
Yeah, 100%. And I wasn't aware that you could be extroverted and introverted, or however you just described it.
But yeah, an extroverted introvert. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I've definitely started to cherish alone time. I think back to the original question too that you asked about if I've noticed changes in life. I think I'm surrounded by people a lot now. And oftentimes people that might not fill me up in the same way that those really close friends or family do, because it's kind of like,
it's a different part of interruption there, but it's a different relationship now. It's right. There's those people there were nurturing and were support. And now a lot of these people around you are work and they're taking, not necessarily in a bad way, but that's what they're there for. I need to take your photo. I need to get this footage. We need to do this. I need something from you rather than the people you were surrounded with before that were giving something to you. And that was like that energy. That's the two different energies, right?
Yeah. And I feel like I put on, you've seen it, like I'm not much different than I am right now, but I definitely like tweak it, like I put on a bit of a professional version of myself. And like you said, also exhausting. So, yeah, I think those like that road trip was a really big deal. I actually still have the journal, and I think I learned a lot about myself and again, what I wanted. And I rolled up to Jackson and started working, and I kind of was still rehabbing that knee injury a little bit that first year here. I was following Jeff Ledger around I'd never skied powder really. So like that was cool. I realized that I had such an aggressive, like ski racer, like foundation, and I had to kind of bring that back and get a little bit floaty and playful. And
but
so
keeping those foundations, I found like over talking to so many people, such a huge majority of the pro skiers now have some sort of racing background because it teaches them the fundamentals, teaches them the strength, teaches them the balance. Like, I think that was the best thing ever.
Totally. I'm so grateful for it. And I also think that it's taught me, like, I kind of had a career before this career to figure out kind of what worked, what didn't. And I still have that really crazy East Coast ski racer work ethic, and I can put that towards POW skiing, which is way more fun, but the work still pays off in the same ways.
It's shocking to me how crazy East Coasters are for skiing, like the froth and the dedication and the commitment to like putting in hours to drive and the information they know about their gear to just get to the shitty little zone with like a white strip of death. And it's like the best day of their life. And I'm like, the dedication and like the energy that East Coast skiers put into it, I don't think it's rivaled. Like people back out West, we don't understand. Like I'm from the Pacific Northwest. It rains all the time. It's no big deal, but we just might not go out. You know what I mean? Right. Like we're spoiled out here, absolutely spoiled. So
Totally.
like those East Coast skiers, like I have huge respect for them. I think they're kooks just because of it, because they're so crazy. But
Absolutely.
I respect the kook for sure.
And I think it's just like you appreciate it so much more because I never like, I don't know, 6-inch powder day for a Jackson local who's been here their whole life. It's like, for me, it's like, oh, you have no idea how great this is.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Although, are there really that many that are like,
No, I'm being
6
hard on
inches?
them.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just,
But it's definitely a different appreciation.
I got to see Jackson on an 8-inch day once. It was sunny and blue. It was December, it was early season, and it was still pretty like low tide. But oh man, that was fun.
Yeah, it's starting to happen here. We had a 10-inch day yesterday. So
did you go on the sled yesterday?
Yeah.
Was that your first POW day on the sled?
Yeah, it was so sick.
How long have you been wanting to get a snowmobile for? Since forever?
I think it's always been on the list, but I think I started seriously thinking about it probably last year. And then when COVID happened or is like going on with the resorts being a little bit weird, I just figured it was a perfect year to pull the trigger.
There you go. Now you're going to learn that it takes a lot longer to figure out than that's the first thing everybody learns. Oh God, this is hard.
Yeah, it's a heavy machine. And like, I think like anything, I'll learn to finesse it. But right now, like everything, like I'm also like a skier, right? So like I don't train my upper body really.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, I need to work on push-ups and like bench press. But I have
shoulder pulls, get a chin-up bar. You can get like super awesome chin-up bars for like $30 that like
totally
you can that like hang, but then you can release them so you can do like different like Australian rows and all sorts of different rows on it. It's the key is the shoulders. This movement I think is the key. Like, do you find when you get home you're just more crushed than you've ever been?
Mostly from like getting myself unstuck or like pushing the sled. And like, I'm definitely in that space of learning where every third tip over, I'm tipped over.
Right. And it's like, oh, let's roll it.
Yep. Totally. All the way around.
Yeah. All right. Let's roll it. Oh, let's roll it. Yeah.
But I'm lucky to have a group of guys that I've been learning with. And there's a few chicks in town that I'm excited to go out with. But I don't know. I think that's one of those things that tips, like any friendly advice is super helpful for anybody that's like been at it for a long amount of time. Cause it's like, I don't know, it's not that intuitive. It's
very humbling, like extremely humbling. Like you go out, you're like, oh no, I'm awful at this.
Totally.
And it's nice we have people to go with you. So I at first I like had a couple really, really good friends that had sleds like the year before I did. And I would only exclusively go with them because I was terrified to go out with anybody else. Mm-hmm. I remember like second or third year we went to this zone just in Pemberton, and like Blake Jorgensen and Mark Abma were up there, and Guillaume, who films for MSP, was there. Wiley Miller was up in the zone too, and a couple other friends. And I'm like,
heavy hitters.
No. Yeah, huge heavy hitters, right? So our buddies were going up and we were doubling, and I still didn't really know what I was doing, and I just kind of like stayed in one place for a while because I didn't want to get on my sled. I was kind of embarrassed and like shy, and then I finally got on, and they were kind of over by this little fire pit, and I was going to go over there, and like sure enough, like 30 seconds on my way over, I like hit a bump and did one of these and was like right into a tree. And I was like, oh no. So I managed to like figure that out for myself, just panic digging and like hope nobody sees me. Because at that point, I just still hadn't really realized that everybody's gone through it and nobody cares. And they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll help you out, rather than like, oh, look at this guy, he's in a tree. But like everybody, if you've never been in a tree on your snowmobile, you're doing it wrong, or you're not.
I hit one my second day.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I have been blown away by the community aspect of just like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes when you're learning something, you feel like you're a nuisance or you're like holding people back. But like you just said, everyone had to start somewhere, and they're so helpful. And that's been cool, just to not be afraid to get stuck, because that's where the progression really does happen, is like really tipping it over, learning, oops, I tipped it over too far. And like without that support, it would be miserable to try to learn by yourself. You would be like, I don't know how you do it.
No, it's brutal. And it's cool to see that like the snowmobile kind of community is growing, especially within like women skiing.
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. I hate that word term, but you know, it is what it is. You know,
Yeah.
females in skiing and women in skiing have gone leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, which is pretty awesome. You're a big part of that. But up here, like the blondes, most of them live two of the three live here in like Squamish, Pemberton. Alex Armstrong, they just got a sled. A couple other girls from the city just got sleds, and they're all just slowly figuring them out this season.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be another like quantum leap.
I agree.
Which was like Veronica Paulson last season at the Corbets, the big backflip.
Yeah.
I was watching that video today, actually, her helmet cam.
Yeah.
And her skiing into the finish line and seeing you so fired up. You greeted her through the finish and was like, fuck yeah.
Totally.
Like, I don't think you could have been happier if you did that.
She wanted that. She's been practicing that for 3 years, and it's been like really cool to watch her. I don't know anybody that's focused 3 years on something so intensely and has like just hucked herself into that couloir year after year after year and went up again and knew that she could do it. Like, it's been cool to watch that progression. Had she
been doing it when like no one was around? I'm just gonna go backflip into Corbett's today.
No, not maybe. If I hadn't seen it, but I know that she was doing bigger and bigger backflips off of every feature she could find, just backflipping. And yeah, I think it's one thing to be able to just naturally do a backflip into that, but it's another thing to like have crashed 4 or 5 times and go back and do it again. Like that.
Once is enough to turn people off, right?
Yeah, the grit of her approach was like so cool. And like no one's ever backflipped into Corbets. No woman has ever backflipped and stomped into Corbets before. And I think like you were just talking about the blondes, and Alex Armstrong, I love all of them. They've all been like, even if it's through Instagram, like just kind of always been an inspiration. They got sleds. So I was like, oh, I can get a sled. I can do this. And like the stuff that those girls are pulling out, flat threes and big lines and stomps and getting hurt too, you know, like there's something to be said about, I got a lot of black eyes and broke my nose and broke my leg last year and did all these things. And a lot of people would kind of like ask me if it was worth it, or like if I was getting too in my head or like pushing too far or whatever. But then there's girls like Veronica and the blondes that are doing the same thing and are helping me like be okay. Like, this is what I want to do. And I'm not crazy for wanting to do this. If a guy was doing it, you'd be like, hell yeah, brother, like sick black eye. But if a chick does it, you're like, oh, are you okay? Like, are you sure you should be doing this? And just having that support and of the women that are pushing it has been like super helpful. And watching Veronica flip into that, it's not saying that I can do it, but it's kind of like, oh, a girl can do it. Like, that's sweet. It's nice to know that opportunity is there. And I'm excited to learn from Veronica and hopefully incorporate more tricks into my repertoire. Same with the girls, like throwing that flat three. The JY threw, that thing's sick. Yeah. You know, like, so I don't know. Sick. It's cool to see.
There's a trampoline gym down in Squamish where they live. They go every Friday. Is there like the same sort of thing in Jackson right now? I know like Woodward, like there's Woodward Copper and there's a few others.
We don't really have a proper gym, but there is like a children's gymnastics gym. And sometimes after hours, like I've got a friend who's got, this is last year without COVID, but he had a key and we'd go and like mess around. So I hope to do that more. I think it's an opportunity. I just need to make it kind of a priority, but that stuff is huge. Like, just coming from a ski racing background, I've never gone upside down before. I have now. I'm learning, but it's just like totally crazy. And to do that where you can fall is nice and not be like flinging yourself off a booter, you know?
Yeah, land into a nice foam pit.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah, right. Is that kind of, do you have like goals for things like that with your skiing? Like, obviously you've gotten to where you are now and it's like, okay, I'm here. Now what?
Yeah, totally. And
sorry to interrupt. That's kind of brings us back to what we were talking about like ages ago, is when we were talking about how you achieved that goal. Right. Mm-hmm. And then now you have to kind of, you said that drive was kind of a reset for you. Now, have you, and it involves everything from, like you said, like, do I answer every DM on my Instagram? Like, you just learn to figure out what you have time for and what your abilities are and where your energy gets focused. So have you come up with sort of a new goal or a new focus with in regards to your career? Because as I said before, like not a lot of people get to experience their dream, to achieve their dream. And your journey kind of went from one dream kind of to a different dream, but you made it. So now that you've got there, have you figured out what's next?
I think so. So I've wrestled with this one because I know what I love. I love skiing really fast and going really big. I like big lines. I like double stagers. I like kind of like mountaineer style lines, but opening it up and skiing it proper. It just gets like, that's my happy place. But that being said, like it's where I'm really comfortable. And so I have been really trying to incorporate more playful skiing. I want to ski more pillows because that's something that I've never done. And I feel like it adds to your like repertoire.
Bring that sled to BC.
I know. That's why they got to open the borders.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. But I also know that the reality of these big lines is it's not an everyday thing. Like you can't like, it's Alaska. It's like a handful of lines, but so much has to line up and you can't be in that place all the time. It's like surfing Jaws every day. It just doesn't happen. It has to line up. So I've kind of put some, I want to keep focusing on that. That's my baby. That's what I love. That's the terrain I want to keep chasing. But in these kind of like early season times, I've been working on backflips. I'm really inspired by that flat 3. I think that trick is just like more natural for me as far as like backflips are such a committing thing. And I tend to kind of, when I'm messing around, go this way.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to incorporate more playful things as well as I got all types of goals and dreams. But I've been really working on my like snow safety and like I want to be able to take this sled and go to like pretty far out zones and like ski things that I just kind of, I like mountaineering, but I'm not a super, like it's hard to be an uphill athlete and a stomper and a downhill athlete. Like that's just different body types. So I'm trying to be like, I really love those big, long mountaineering days and incorporating that with the skiing style of like big swooping super G turns. So kind of incorporating that. And then I've also been learning to paraglide and
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's been kind of an eye-opening.
There's a lot of people that do it up here in Pemberton too.
Really?
It sounds like you should just move to BC.
Honestly, don't tend to be at a good time.
No. Jackson is like I always say is like Jackson's like the Whistler, Squamish, Pemberton of the States.
It's cool. I love it here. I also think that there's like a lot of amazing places to live and paragliding has opened my eyes to that. Just like warm places too.
How did you get into it? It still terrifies me.
It's pretty terrifying. My dad's a pilot, a paragliding pilot.
Oh, cool.
So kind of grew up knowing that he flew and I have a picture of him up on the wall. Actually, that's a picture of him in front of the Alps, like with his paraglider. And I just like, it was also one of those things like I like wanted to, but also didn't want to. And then COVID happened and I like had this crazy day where I kind of just like had this overwhelming desire to learn. And I knew the guy that owns a school here because my dad had flown with him and just called him up and learned how to fly. And it's like a crazy sport to learn because you can't see the air or the wind. And it's like, just like skiing, the weather is such an important aspect of the sport. And you have to have so many things dialed. And canopies are crazy. Like the wing is just like a crazy thing. And there's not a lot of input too. Like with skiing, you can stop. With the paraglider, you can't just stop, or like you can't really turn on. You can turn, but it's not the same. So I think one day I want to be really comfortable with my wing before I do this. But I think one day kind of combining the two is kind of
a little speed flying.
Yeah, someday. I don't really want to rush it though. I think putting skis underneath my wing gives me a false sense of confidence that I don't want to rush. Like I want to be really confident.
That makes sense because skis are where you're the most comfortable, right? On your ski. Right. And when you put those on, you're like, okay, I'm good. And then this thing, whatever, the skis will make up for it. Right. Yeah, is that what you kind of meant there?
Yeah. I just I don't have a death wish. Like I want to like keep pushing myself, but I want to do it respectfully and smartly. And, so those are kind of my goals. And I really have enjoyed the filming thing. I love putting together that type of art. Like photos I really enjoy too, but there's something that's fun about filming and music and like all the aspects that go into a segment. So lots of goals with my skiing as well. I just like want to keep creating art and pushing the sport. And
that's another thing I was going to ask you about. I've actually got, remember that little page I showed you with like 5 words? It says artist ? Because I think on a few little posts and a few things that you've said is like you've never really considered yourself super creative, but you definitely are realizing you have a creative outlet.
Yeah.
Right. And are you starting to find ways to kind of get that out? And I was the same too. Like I've always enjoyed visual, like art, like photos and painting. I can't draw a stick man. My life depended on it.
Yeah, totally.
But I love to take photos. I love looking at photos, and I've never really had an outlet until I started to do this. And I was like, oh, there's all these opportunities for things I can do. Like I can create photos. I can talk to people. I can do stuff I can create stories or tell stories. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it was this big realization and like definitely changed my life. I'm still doing it. Are you kind of in that zone now? Like, is there certain areas that you're starting to realize, like now that you have the ability to shoot photos and work with photographers and videographers and editors, like through TGR, like access to all of these creatives, these really amazing creative people, are you starting to find that outlet for yourself?
I am. And I think like you were saying, how there's so many different types of creative outlets. I've always really enjoyed writing, and I never really put that in the same box as being an artist as like singing or playing instruments or drawing, because I can't paint or draw to save my life at all. Like maybe if you like abstract art, I can be like, it's abstract, but like, no. But I definitely have always like enjoyed, like a lot of my friends are artists, like, which is funny. Like I've always been a jock, but really gravitated towards weirdo artistic people. And like I did theater in high school just to like hang out with people that like thought differently. And I would say that skiing has opened this new door where I look at things totally differently, especially since shooting photos. I look at shadows and I look at landscapes and I look at rocks and I like look at trees and things where I used to be like, where's the pow turn? Now I'm like, oh, I see it. Like, and that's been
the picture would be the frame of this picture was super cool if I came in here and there, and then you'd have the light shining through the thing that way. And then like, yeah, totally. Right. You see more than just the turn now.
And that's added a ton. And same with filming. And I think like the thing that I've definitely found the most creative expression through is finding lines and skiing things how I want to ski them. And I learned that through competing, but now I've been able to take it to more of like an artistic platform. And I also have really kind of started to hone in on what my skiing style is. And like, that's super fun because it's like playful, and it's, I've really started paying attention to big wave surfers. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts where they interview big wave surfers, or I've been following Kai Lenny and he's did like a Life of Kai on Red Bull, and mostly because I feel like they are able to conquer their fear in such incredible ways. And they also do this wild thing where like I say when I'm ready to drop, but they drop when the wave is ready, like that's kind of another level of being able to be on it. And I admire them for that. But also like,
I guess that skiing can be like you can relate that to like, standing at the top of a line, photographers waiting, videographers waiting. Oh, here comes the sun. All right. Are you ready? Totally. Let's go. It's the same sort of thing, I guess. Right.
Yeah. And you're cold. Like in that moment, they've been sitting at the lineup and I've been twiddling my thumbs waiting for the sun. So yeah, like just being able to get into that place has been really, really cool. And then I also, for whatever reason, and this is weird being an ex-ski racer, but surfing and snowboarding and skateboarding, I just find so beautiful. And I think like slash turns.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I love it. And I've always like skied with snowboarders and been around snowboarders. And I've really gotten into like watching skate culture. Thrasher, like King of the Road, like won me over. I was like, skaters are the coolest. They like don't wear helmets and they're all tatted and they like smoke cigarettes and don't care, and skiing is so polished. And I'm so grateful that skiing has actually taken a turn where people are putting fitness and like focusing on their bodies, and it's more of an athletic endeavor. I think back in the day it was more like rock star, like huck yourself, and it does feel like it's taken a a change. And I like that part, but I also like kind of like
the badass part, like Alex Armstrong. So like I brought her up a couple times. She actually works for the Low Pressure Podcast. She helps us behind the scenes, but she always tells herself that she's a skier, but deep down she's really an urban snowboarder.
Totally. She's
like,
punk
I love
rock.
It. Yeah, I love this. She's like, I love it. It's like, that's what I really want to be in life, or an urban snowboarder.
Yeah. And I'm working, like, as the creative conversation kind of comes to this, is like, I'm working on a side project this winter that I'm really excited about, which will be more storytelling behind the scenes, what it is to be a professional skier more than the highlight reel. Cause I feel like you get all the pow shots, you get the big stomp lines, but there's a lot that goes into that. And I'm excited to share that. But a lot of my inspiration. Is
it like a lot of writing? Sorry, that project. Can you share?
I can certainly share. Not a lot of writing that might happen, but a lot of voiceovers, which I write first and then kind of talk about. So yeah, in a sense, writing. I like that aspect of, like, I have a 14-year-old sister, and I've seen Instagram kind of mess with her head, and I've known Instagram to mess with my head and a lot of people's heads. And I think, like, the honesty of showing how many hits it takes to stomp a trick, or how many times I dump over my sled before I get that pow turn, like the whole Instagram versus reality thing. And so some writing, yes, and trying to evolve that, but also, like, I like that raw, like, snowboard, like 90s scratchy type of content. And so we're filming a lot of it on GoPros and, like, old, we call it the potato cam, but it's like an old handheld video, like, I don't even know, like 2005 video camera. But so I have a lot of inspiration from snowboarders as well, and just trying to tie that into, like, those, like, surfy slashy turns. That's definitely my creative outlet, I would say, that I am most excited about.
That's cool. You're then a question, if you don't mind me asking, is your dad still around? Well, you're an adult now, and you can be like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, totally. about certain things. All right. Yeah. You can be straight up rather than having that, like, that veneer of parental perfection or whatever it is. Right. You know what I mean? It's like when you're a kid, you're like, oh, my dad's the best. But now that you're a little older, you're like, well, you're a human.
Totally. And it's good to be honest in that relationship. And, like, there's a lot that I want to know, but there's also, like, a lot that it's good to know, as a lot of adrenaline junkies, like, addiction. I don't even know, like, the term adrenaline junkie really, but, like, as people that seek this lifestyle, it's like, there are things that go hand in hand, like addiction. And, like, I'm aware that, like, I need to keep an eye on myself in certain places. And, like, I love to have a good time, but there's, like, a time and a place for that. And kind of, like, learning those lessons too from somebody, like, it's been cool to get to know him. And we do have a lot in common. And I think there's a really beautiful story that hopefully will come out of that this spring that we're working on. And yeah, I mean, life's messy, and he was figuring himself out. And my mom had me quite young, and she had me at 20. And so when I turned 20, I was like, holy crap. Like, when you become an adult, you're like, oh, I get it. You guys did awesome. Thank you.
Look how great I turned out. I can barely make toast.
Totally. I'm like, if I had a child right now, woo-wee, good luck. So yeah, no, it's been a really cool, actually, like, I don't know. I feel like there's chapters in life, and this has been a coming to age one that's been really, really special.
It's exciting. Sounds like the last year and a half for you have been pretty full on.
It's been wild for sure. And I think COVID has allowed, like, that pause in all the stuff to really dive into those things. And that's the type of person I am too. Like we said, I like to sit with myself. I like to sit with my thoughts, and I like to write and digest, and maybe sometimes too much, but
yeah, because you can be your own worst enemy sometime, right? Like, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. Like, what you said kind of mirrors myself. Like, I'm outside around people, I'm like, hey, everybody, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But as soon as I'm not, like, I just, no thanks. I live by my hang out. Don't want to reach out to anybody. If someone calls me up, I'm like, hey, what's going on? But I don't make a lot of the effort. I want to stay at home and kind of figure yourself out.
Totally. Yeah.
Is that why you're living in the little cabin in the woods there? Is that where you are? A little log cabin in the woods?
I do have 3 roommates, but they let me hang out in my room and give me space. And then when I'm ready to come out and say hi, they let me do that too. But yeah, I think that's also part of the sports too. It's been, like, a place that I can be in my head and have a distraction, like long days in the mountains. Like, when I start skinning before the sun comes up, that is the best place for me to think. I'm moving, so I'm not, like, spinning, like, when you're in your room and you're like, that's not super healthy or helpful. So I try to like really center like meditation and things have helped that. But like when I'm able to be outside or in my paraglider, just cruising and thinking, like, I think that's why I love being in the mountains. It's like the perfect way for me to explore.
It's the rhythm. We've talked about this so many times on the show, and I need to figure out a term for it, right? It's like the skin track thought process, or the like you're climbing on your mountain bike, or you're in the skin track and it's just left, right, and you get into that monotonous, repetitive motion where it's just like, all right, and it just almost sets your brain into that zone.
Yeah. And there's science behind that too. Like I don't know anything about it, but I remember being in high school and them saying that like walking therapy is a thing and walking meditation is a thing because of the rhythm that it puts your mind in. So it's pretty cool.
Maybe that's why runners like running so much.
I bet.
I'm not a fan of running at all. What
Ultra marathon runners are fascinating.
They're strange, interesting human beings. Absolutely. Actually, that's a good point. I'm sure there's a good like marathon runner podcast you can listen to, like the mindset of these crazy people.
Totally.
Impressive. What do you do when you're not thinking of doing skiing? Like, what do you do to like, other than the flying? Is there anything that you're just like, all right, I'm going to do this. I need a break from all the things.
I've gotten into mountain biking. That's been a fun one. It's mostly sports is actually. Do
you have any like secret stuff that you're finally willing to release on the podcast?
I wish I did. I like to read. I like to meditate and like, I don't know.
Do you do like controlled meditation, like with an app or anything, or like just any specific breathing, or you just like to focus on yourself?
I've gone in waves. So when I was in high school, I took a meditation class that like definitely turned me onto it. And that was, I forget the type, but like no app involved. And I learned just to meditate with my breath and found really cool. Like I got pretty deep into it and was meditating before ski races and kind of like used it in that way. And then I kind of got away from it and then used the app to get back into it. But now I've kind of just come and go into it.
Do you still do it like before you're about to drop into like a big line or something like that?
Maybe a variation. It's not necessarily like I'm going to sit and meditate, but it's like.
But you just know how to find the little Zen zone. Like, do you know Julian Carr?
I do.
Yeah. Ask Julian about his headspace before he goes and launches those like 200-foot front flips.
You have to.
Yeah. He puts himself into this really interesting like mindset, which is pretty cool.
It's super cool. And that's kind of what I'm after with this side project, is to talk to people like Julian and be like, what happens? Like, because that is the most fascinating part to me. It really is. I think something like a muscle that you can exercise, but you also have to kind of have like something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That should be the title of your series. Something just a little bit different.
But yeah, no, any sports and hanging out with friends. I really like live music, love live music, but not right now, obviously. So like music festivals for me are like Bluegrass festivals or whatever, like where you have like 3 days and you just like go and just like, you can kind of completely disconnect from the world, throw your cell phone away.
Did you develop your love for Bluegrass by moving to Jackson Hole?
Maybe.
I've only ever seen a live Bluegrass show once, and it was in Jackson, and it was so much fun. It was I don't remember the bar we went to. I can tell you what bar we were at. It's kind of down the road from, like, not quite in Jackson, and it's not up in Teton Village. It's kind of halfway there. I don't know if you know what I'm talking. Maybe.
It's like a double wide trailer. It's pretty sweet dive bar.
Maybe a bit bigger than that. I don't know, some kind of bar. It seems to be like the middle of nowhere.
Fair. Yeah, like we get funk and bluegrass to Jackson, so that's definitely like, I think, the genres that I've gravitated towards. I love to travel. Again, not a thing that we're doing right now. People fascinate me. It'll definitely come back. But yeah, I kind of just enjoy all the things. Nothing that's like super secretive or exciting, unfortunately.
That's all right. I had to try and find something. With the writing though, you're talking about you did your journaling. You mentioned your journal as you were driving across. So you've actually do a lot of writing, I would assume. Most people that do journaling do a lot of writing, even if it's just for yourself.
Yeah.
But it definitely can like set yourself up for something more. Like, have you ever considered writing a piece for like a magazine or an article or anything like that? Have you?
I have not. I've thought about it, but I have not. I feel like I tend to also kind of gravitate towards dissecting like kind of like touchy subjects. And I always get a little nervous. I'm like, I'm going to talk to Sierra at Powder is like who I wanted to write this thing with. And then I was like, oh, I just like don't want to ruffle feathers. And I think that's because I was at such a fresh point in my career, and I really wanted to like kind of be known for my
You're
skiing.
afraid to like, set something off, right? I got here, I finally did it. I'm not messing this up by my opinions.
Yeah.
Do you know Mike Rogie with the Mountain Gazette, the recently resurrected Mountain Gazette?
I don't know him, but
I'm gonna put you guys in touch with each other.
Cool.
So Mountain Gazette obviously was a magazine that was forever. It was a really awesome magazine for years and years, to like the 70s. And he just resurrected it. And one of his main goals is to have a first-time writer, first-time contributor, I think, in every issue.
Cool. Well, I'd love to write something.
Right. I'll put you guys in touch because I think that would be something you might be interested in. Just
Certainly.
based on everything I've learned in the last hour or so.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yes. It's already been like an hour. I could easily talk to you for another 5, but we won't, because all of our machines are going to probably
True. It'll just explode.
Right. So what have you got now that season's kind of slowly getting started? Have you got some big plans other than your little project, maybe not little project, but the project you're working on? Yeah. Any specific plans that you can share with us?
Definitely.
Things to look out for?
Yeah. I'm going to be filming with TGR again. Mm-hmm. And
awesome.
I'm unsure what that looks like at the moment. We're still in very much like the creative, figuring out what the world is going to do.
I think Make Believe is actually free on TGR now today.
It is. You should check it out.
As of today, for TGR premium members, you can go check out Make Believe. Yeah, and if you want to see your athlete edit, you can just go and find that on YouTube, which you should definitely do because you're awesome.
Thanks. I'm going to be doing that. I don't know where or when. And there's some boys up in Bozeman, Montana, Benchy Productions.
Yep.
I'm going to go hopefully play around with them. Alex, Parkin, Jake, just a great crew of guys that were all involved in the TGR film, have sleds, and I really like their skiing. I like their approach. They're very artistic in nature, and so that's kind of on my list of things to do. I really want to get to Alaska. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'd be happy to drive. I've been bugging Todd and Steve Jones about it, how much I want to go and ski spine. So that's definitely the biggest goal, and I'm just going to meditate on that, put it out in the atmosphere, with the secret law of attraction. Hopefully it comes around.
I think you're allowed to, if you go from and you drive straight to Alaska, you're allowed to into BC. They'll let you across if you drive straight. They've caught a bunch of people that weren't doing that and then find them and send them back. But like you could easily get up there.
Yeah. And you just can't stop really, which is a bummer, but it would be like a cool story too. I think just to drive through, and with the sled, Alaska turns into a different world is what I've heard, and Paraglider too. So just like go hang out there for a bit, is a dream of mine. But other than that, I'm hanging in Jackson, figuring out a sled, and I'll be, putting out this Hardwired project here pretty shortly, the first episode. And I'm trying to do like once a month, and I'm starting a YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that. And
exciting.
Yeah, super exciting.
So much stuff. So many projects. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, there is another thing that helps you to be able to do all of those projects, and that is help from sponsors. Now's a good time to show them some love.
Oh man, I love my sponsors. The North Face, they're great. Also, I don't know if you can see this, but this is where I crashed into the tree. It's a little bit of a bruise on my face.
Is that recent?
Yeah, that was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And
on the sled, or like were you skiing?
On the sled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was full on. Sierra Nevada, love those guys. Blizzard, Technica, Scott, just sign with them. I absolutely love their helmet, goggle, backpack, poles.
Have you found like navigating through sponsor deals and all that kind of stuff is difficult as well? Have you has it been easy for you? Has it been kind of tough for you?
I really hate talking about money.
Yeah, right.
I absolutely hate it. And
do you have someone that helps you out with that now? Like an agent or a manager?
I got a manager like 2 months ago, and it's been a really like probably the best decision I've made for my career, because I just feel gross talking about money. And especially when you're like, I deserve, like it's not like this deserves, it's like, no, like I'm asking for money.
because like you have to there has to be examples, right? So I feel like I feel that I'm worth this because this and that and that. But when you're talking about yourself, right? Like you can talk about its specific achievements, But when you're talking about yourself, you're also kind of talking about your own personal worth, right? Like how much
yeah.
am I worth? And like, am I willing to argue or like haggle with someone about what I believe I'm worth?
It's
You know
so
what I mean? That's
uncomfortable.
so uncomfortable. I can only imagine.
So yeah, that part has not been easy. I've been really lucky. I feel like I love the relationship I have with all my sponsors. And also that was another reason I wanted to get an agent or a manager, was so that like I never had to kind of mess with that. I never had to like cross that boundary and fight with someone over money, or like
let them deal with it, and you can be happy, nice.
Yeah.
You know, Kate, and then this guy be like, hey, talk to him.
Yeah, it's like
he knows what my number is. He'll
Totally.
fight for me. Yeah.
So yeah, they are all great. And it's also been like, I don't know, I've been really taken care of through COVID. I know a lot of sports marketing budgets have been slashed, but I've been impressed with how all these companies are keeping their athletes afloat, taking care of them. And we really are, like, as the outdoor industry, like, I think a lot of cool things are coming out of this time. So looking forward to seeing what everyone puts together this year.
That's pretty awesome. And are you going to end, now that we're near the end, are you going to end in this episode with your tagline?
Meaning hold it wide open?
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny because now that I have a snowmobile, it feels like even more fitting.
Right.
So this is crazy too. So hold it wide open comes from this guy, Connor LaFrance, who was a motorcycle rider who was my age, a family friend, and he passed away. And I bought a sled and I found one of the old bracelets like randomly the day I found the sled. And I was like, oh boy, Connor wants me to hold it wide open. So yeah, that's also like definitely the thing on top of lines that I remember and tell myself, or when I'm about to drop into a backflip and I'm terrified, I'm like, well, hold it wide open.
Amazing. Well,
yeah.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm glad we finally got to connect, and I'm looking forward to more.
Cool. Yeah. I feel like we barely hit we were just cruising.
Exactly. Right. Like I was telling you at the beginning, like there's people that you can just sit and talk to, and I can just lean back, let it go. Well, this will just have to be the first in a series. And hopefully the next one we'll be able to do in person.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Crack a beer, and then maybe after a day of skiing, or I'll have a little handheld recorder and we can do it while we eat lunch on our snowmobiles.
Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah, there's something about like having a conversation with someone and like, I don't know, it's weird. I know that you're there, but just also looking at myself on a phone. It's kind of a funny thing.
Yeah, I miss it. I did like 150 of them in person, and then COVID shut it down. And there are benefits to it, and there's also drawbacks. The benefits were I did 2 this week. In the last 2 days, I got 2, and I got another 2 lined up, so I can get a month's worth just right at home. I don't have to go anywhere and do anything. But I like going places. I like doing things. I like meeting people. And most of the time, I would like be in these situations that I'd meet somebody, and we'd get to know each other, or just the casual, hey, what's going on? Hey, nice to see you. And then later down the road, I'd be like, hey, do you want to come on the show? And they know me, right?
Right.
But I find you can get like, you're a different animal because you know what you're doing. You're a talker.
I'm a talker.
Exactly. You're a talker. You know how to do it. Where so it's not difficult with you, but some people that maybe not know me, they're a little guarded at first, right?
Gotta get comfortable.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. I was talking to Adam from Out of Bounds podcast, another podcast, and he's like, man, I miss doing them in person. I'm like, I know. Me too. One day soon. We'll be back.
We'll be back. And then that gives me an excuse to come out to BC.
Absolutely.
Maybe move there. Pretty cool.
You never know. You never know. You know enough. And that's a great thing about the ski industry too. Even though you don't know people, like we were talking about the blondes and stuff. Have you met the blondes before?
1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, like briefly kind of thing, but it doesn't even matter. Like you can be like, oh, hey, I'm coming to BC. Like, can you guys give me some information? Or anybody that lives up here, team members, that sort of stuff. And they're like, yeah, we got you.
It's so sweet. It's such a helpful community.
You need a place to crash. You need a place to keep your sled for a couple of days. Like, no sweat. We got it.
That's the tough part about COVID too. Couch surfing is no longer. And I love hitchhiking up the pass, and like that's not kosher right now. So we'll get back to it though. I've got faith. It'll happen. Wear your masks, people. Wear your mask. Mask up. Don't be a dick. Wear a mask. Awesome. That's your tagline. Yeah, don't be a dick. Wear a mask. Low pressure podcast. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to stay tuned. Where can people follow you? Because they should. You can follow me on Instagram at CAITE_Z as in zebra, ELIFF as in Frank, Caite Zeliff. And then that's pretty much it. Twitter, I don't quite understand. And TikTok, I'm not there yet. And Facebook.
For old people.
For old people.
Like me.
Oh, no. But yeah, I really appreciate the chat. Thanks for bringing me on. I've been wanting to get on this one for a while. So
yeah. Do you listen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Ah, nice. I still find that weird.
Oh, I'm a super fan. I'm a super fan of a lot of people.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Everybody go follow Caite on Instagram. You'll be very happy that you did because she's pretty funny and your personality shines.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, let's do it again soon and maybe in person.
Hell yeah.
Sweet. Peace.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.